everyone. Welcome back to episode number 3 of the Stone and Straw podcast. I am your host, John Cullen. Great to be back. Once again, we are now heading into our 3rd episode. This marks, I guess, the halfway point of the first season, and I just want to take some time to thank everybody. I know I've done that a couple times now, but the feedback on everything has just been so tremendous. It was really nice. I curled in a bonspiel in Abbotsford this weekend, and just the number of people who came up to me in person and just said, "Hey, I listened to the podcast, really liked it," whatever, was really nice, really unexpected and really sweet. And online, you guys have been so sweet to me as well. So thank you so much. If this is the first time that you're tuning in, this is the 3rd episode. There's 2 other great ones featuring Chelsea Carey and John Morris. So when you're done this one, you can flip on back and check those out. I'm John Cullen, as I said, and this episode, as always, is brought to you by CurlingZone. It's brought to you by Hardline Curling. It's brought to you by Dynasty Curling. 3 amazing sponsors. They've all been supporting this podcast from the very beginning. Before this podcast even started, they've all been on board, and they're all fantastic. And so thank you to them for doing this. And this week in the preamble, I wanted to talk a little bit about the curling show. A lot of people commented when I first announced this podcast that maybe this was going to be sort of the spiritual successor to the curling show. And I think that's true. I think it's really funny. Dean Gemmell, if you never listened to the curling show, it was essentially the original curling podcast. And it almost kind of feels like one of the original podcasts. I never even knew what a podcast was until the curling show. That's a true story. At the time, I was curling with Adam Cheka, the brother of Paul, who I played with for about a decade. And he was telling me about this curling show, and he said, "Oh, it's a podcast." And I was like, what the hell is a podcast? Which is very similar to how people still act today, 10 years later, by the way, or 14 years later, or however long it's been. It's fun to, I know for my parents and their friends, my mom curls in a Monday night league at Peace Arch Curling Club, my original home club. And I remember, my mom saying, "Oh yeah, I told my teammates about it." And they're like, "What's a podcast?" But I was that person. I think it was probably, 2005, 2006. And I was like, "What is a podcast? What's the curling show?" And I remember Adam saying, "Oh, he interviews curlers, and it's a great show." And I listen to it every week. And I remember thinking like, okay, well, I guess I'll check out this podcast. I love listening to curlers talk about curling. I mean, that's kind of been my jam forever. And so I checked it out, and it's such a great show. It was such a great show. I mean, Dean hasn't done any for a while now. I don't know that it's ever been officially retired. I feel like Dean's just, he got married a couple of years ago. Has been a busy guy. But really, for those of you that say this is the spiritual successor to that, I would take that as a super high compliment, because I love the curling show. I was lucky enough to be a guest. I don't know why anyone would want to listen to me talk about my curling career, but pardon me, we really had a great chat when I was on it, and it was something that was a big part of my life for quite a while. And I loved the insight that Dean was able to get out of curlers, and to just show that there is something to curling and to curlers beyond just the traditional right after you win a big game interview. And in a lot of ways, it did set the template for this. So I just want to shout out Dean Gemmell. I don't know if he's listening. I copied him. I made a curling podcast, and he copied me. He became a stand-up comedian a couple years ago, and he's been having a lot of success with it. And he's just a great guy. We've had a lot of chats about curling, about stand-up. And so I don't know if he's listening, but if he is, thank you, Dean. And if he's not, if you see Dean Gemmell around, maybe at one of his Brush Like a Badass clinics or on Twitter, tell him that I'm thinking about him, and I love the curling show. Okay, now let's get on to episode 3. This one might be my favorite one. I know that maybe I'm not supposed to say that because there's another 3 still to come, and I really have loved all the interviews I've done, but this one was with Marc Kennedy. And anyone who knows Marc, who's come across him in the game, he's just an amazing person. He's warm and welcoming, and he has no ego about him at all. I remember the first time I interviewed him for Magical Question Fun Time for Curling Canada, I had never really, I mean, we talked to each other a little bit at the curling club. We knew who each other was because I had interviewed some of his teammates for Cullen and a Curler, and we'd played against him once or twice. So we kind of knew who each other were, but I barely knew the guy, and it was in the middle of all the broom controversy. And I remember I called him up to do the Magical Question Fun Time interview. It was on a Saturday morning. It was one of those rare weekends where neither one of us was curling. Called him up on a Saturday morning, and then we ended up talking after the interview for like an hour because he said, well, I kind of know what all the top teams are thinking about the brooms. How about a team like yours that's kind of in that sort of upper middle class? Like, how's the broom thing affecting you? And that just kind of sparked us on a long conversation. And ever since then, I would say that, anytime we've been in a spiel together since then, we've always made time to chat to each other. And you can just really tell that in this chat. He's such a great guy, a warm guy. Like my other interviews, very honest. We talk a lot about his coming up and getting onto that Kevin Martin team because he was a bit of an unknown commodity before that. We talk about this last year, the 2018 Olympics, and kind of what went on there. Some of you might say what went wrong. I don't know if I agree with that statement, but we talk about what went on. And at the end, he kind of talks about his future. And I think that he's sort of alluded to that a little bit. He was on TSN and he's talked about it a little bit online, but I feel like he's pretty revealing about where he thinks the rest of his career is going. So make sure you stay right until the end of this podcast because that's maybe the most valuable information that he's sharing on this whole thing. But the whole episode is so great, and I was so happy that he agreed to do it. When I first thought of doing this podcast, he was the first guy I thought I have to get this guy on the show because I just knew that he would be a perfect guest, and he was. And it was actually really sweet. I was in Edmonton to do a couple interviews. You're going to hear one of those coming up later on in this season, but I was in Edmonton to do a couple interviews, and I asked Marc, where he wanted to do it. And he said that, could we just do it in a Timmy's or a Starbucks or something like that? And I didn't really want all the background noise, and it's kind of weird to have microphones and a recorder and everything set up on a table in a coffee shop. And so I suggested the St. Albert Curling Club where he grew up. That's where he started playing. That's where he continues to play now. And so that's where we met. So it was really awesome. The manager there opened up the club for us. We went upstairs, just the two of us, and we got to do this interview in his home club in St. Albert, Alberta. So I thought that was really special. We had his Olympics jersey, it's all signed and framed up in the club there right beside Scott Pfeiffer's his world champion jersey because he is also from St. Albert. Those two guys have known each other for a long time. And we actually start out the interview talking a little bit about him coming up in St. Albert. So this is a great one. I know you guys are going to love it. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Remember, you can follow us at Stone Straw Pod on Twitter. You can follow me at Cullen the Curler. Make sure to rate and review the podcast on iTunes. That helps me out in their algorithms. Download the show too. It's always nice to get downloads instead of streams. When you stream it, iTunes doesn't pick up that you've listened to it, so it doesn't count in the chart ratings. So if you can actually just do me a favor and download the episode, that would be great. And just tell your friends. I know most people listening to this are curlers. They're on a curling team. They know other curlers. If you like it, please tell your friends and share it around. Okay, without any further ado, this is Stone and Straw, Episode 3 with Marc Kennedy. This episode of Stone and Straw is brought to you in part by Dynasty Curling. Dynasty Curling is a Canadian company that has been around since 2015 at changing the landscape of curling apparel, both on and off the ice. And my team uses Dynasty. We're repping the Dynasty clothes out there. They're super comfortable, super nice, and we're not the only ones who use them. Obviously, Olympic and world champions, Team Jennifer Jones, Team Chelsea Carey, Team Gushu, Team Adine, Team Kody, and many more. If you follow them on Twitter at Dynasty Curling, you can see their insanely good roster. But what a lot of people probably don't know is that Dynasty also creates a lot of curling products for off the ice as well. It could be hats and hoodies that just have the Dynasty logo on it, which look great. They have gear to support your favorite team or your favorite province at the Brier or the Scotties. And they also have workout gear, which is really cool too. So you should obviously check them out, and especially check out that apparel. You probably didn't know. You probably just think, oh, it's only this sublimated curling gear I see on the ice. No, they have awesome off-ice stuff, and because they're really sweet, they have a deal just for you for listening to this podcast. If you use the promo code STONESTRAW at checkout, you'll get 10% off your any purchase you make of Dynasty off-ice apparel. So that's pretty amazing. So head on over to dynastycurling.com, enter in the promo code STONESTRAW, and you'll get 10% off your order of Dynasty off-ice apparel. And if you live in Winnipeg, they just opened a retail store, so you can check that out at the Granite Club in Winnipeg, or check them out online at Dynasty Curling on Twitter, Instagram, or dynastycurling.com. Okay, well now we're officially recording. Beautiful. And we're in your home club of St. Albert.
We are.
This is where it all started?
This is where it all started.
The magic.
Yeah, how cool is this that we're here?
This is cool.
Yeah, I started when I was 6 in this club. It was a lot smaller. They went through some pretty heavy renovations about 20 years ago. But yeah, this is where it started. And now we've been lucky enough to come back, and we run a junior spiel here every year.
I was going to ask you
over
about the
50
junior
teams,
spiel.
And it's just so awesome to come back and be able to do that. And we have a junior elite development program that runs twice a week now. So, and I still live in St. Albert with my family. This is just where I'm meant to be. And it feels pretty cool when you get to come back to the place where it started and be able to give back. I think that's it's good for the soul.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because so you started here when you were 6, so you just never left. You were that guy. You just
I never left. I mean, there were some years in my teenage years when curling got a little more serious, and did a lot of traveling and played with some teams out of Calgary.
Sure.
And so I didn't spend a lot of time in the club playing in leagues, but it was always close to my heart. And a few years ago when we got the junior spiel idea, it was a no-brainer to bring it back here. And they've got a great group of people here running the club, and they do weddings and banquets. And this isn't your prototypical Canadian curling club struggling to keep their head above water. This club's
it's beautiful.
It's doing really well, and they've got new leagues starting up again, and it's just a good place to be, and feels like a good place to be. And if you look over there, you can see the Marc Kennedy Scott Pfeiffer shrine.
Gorgeous.
And you know what? That was a big part this year, being able to play with Scott as a teammate. When I was about 8, Scott and I were both in Little Rocks here.
Okay.
And watching Scott go to World Juniors, and he was kind of my childhood idol, I guess. Everything Scott did, I wanted to do.
And you were 2 years younger than him?
At least. He's an old man now, but it was probably
we're all old men now.
I think it's about
Mark.
4 years. He's older than me, so everything he did, I'm like, and he was left-handed too, so I wanted to be like Scott. So it was a really good idol and role model to have, and so to get a chance to be a teammate with him this year was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a cool spot. Is this does it feel like home for you in the sense, pardon me, that like this is where you can come and no one kind of bugs you? Like everyone sort of knows you, and you can come here and you can throw, I don't mean to say that it bothers you, but just like this is the place where you can come where everybody goes, okay, yeah, that's Mark. He's been here forever. Like whatever,
absolutely.
Who cares?
And you have a chat. You talk about the weather, you talk about golf, and you talk a little bit about curling, and they ask a little bit about what's going on, but there's not that, oh my God, it's Marc Kennedy.
Right.
This is just where I belong and where I've been for so long.
Beautiful. So I wanted to talk, I start out every podcast by asking how you got started. You already kind of mentioned that a little bit. So was it your parents that got you into it at such a young age, or how did it all start for you? And also when did it become like an elite thing, or a thing that you knew that you wanted to do at a high level? Yeah.
So like I said, I was 6. My dad actually took over the Little Rock program here. So he didn't have a lot of experience with coaching or anything, but had curled himself for a long time and loved the game. So my brother was 2 years older, and we would come out every Sunday morning, and there was a big group of about 50 of us that would head out on the ice and play. And I remember my dad used to, there was a Reba McEntire song called Little Rock. None of us knew that it was about a wedding ring, but it said Little Rocks, and that was the name of our program. So we would warm up to that song every Sunday morning. And,
yes.
And then just the thrill of sliding on the ice and being a part of something and having my family there. And I would say I was about 12 years old, and my dad was coaching our junior team, my brother and I, and the Scarbin brothers.
Okay.
And we started to have some success. And we did pretty well, and we loved winning. We were very competitive, and we got all the way to the Alberta Junior Provincial Final. And
when you were 12?
I was 12.
Holy shit.
Playing second, and my brother was 14. I still had a slip-on slider.
Oh, wow.
Big toe slider. All I could do is hit. I couldn't hit the rings to save my life. So some things don't change. And I remember we beat Colin Davison, the world junior champion, in the semifinal. He was playing with Blake McDonald and Scott Pfeiffer.
Man, he must have lost his mind.
I don't think they were happy
I
losing
can't
to a bunch of
imagine they
kids.
were. No.
But we ended up losing the final to Sheldon Schaefer from Medicine Hat. And that was it. That was the moment where, first of all, I realized that we were pretty good.
Yep.
And second of all, this is what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be in big games, big events, battling it out with a team. And I kind of caught the bug there. And honestly, I never let it go.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's crazy. So I did actually want to talk to you a little bit about your brother, because he still curls competitively, but he's never quite played at the level that you have. Was that something that was there like a moment where you kind of went in different paths? Was that something that he chose, or you just happened to be that much better? Or like,
no, I never was. Actually, he was always a better curler than me. It was a little bit of both. There was a moment as we got towards the end of our junior career, we put together a new team. Glenn was going to skip. I was playing second. We brought in Jeff Erickson from Peace River.
Yep.
And Kevin Scarbin as well. And then Glenn pushed out of the hack here one night in a league game, and the hack came flying out behind him, and he blew his knee.
Oh.
And he ended up having to get surgery for torn meniscus, and he was in a brace for a good 6 months, and he wasn't able to curl. And it was a year that we had a lot of success. We got all the way to the Canadian junior tiebreaker.
Yep.
And so
Jeff took over skipping.
Yep. I moved up to third, and yeah, we had a good season, and that was Glenn's last junior year. So he ended up having to commit more of his time he's an engineer, so he was in university at the time, and he commit more of his time to studying, and kind of took the work direction, and was a really smart guy, so decided to become an engineer. But you're right, he's always curled. He's always kind of, played with good teams and been to provincials a bunch of times. And then the other moment that changed for me was getting a phone call out of juniors from John Morris.
Right. Yeah, so that's a perfect segue. I was going to ask you about that, because this podcast is sort of all about kind of tracing your steps, and so that was obviously I interviewed John a couple weeks ago, and so John comes to Alberta.
Yeah.
How were you sort of on his radar, just from being at national juniors, or like how did that sort of team come together with Kevin and Paul Moffat? And
it's funny, man. I tell people sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time. And I did know John from Canadian juniors. We played each other a couple of years. I like to say he single-handedly ruined my junior career by beating me in the national final and then in the tiebreaker. So we got to know each other a little bit. And then it's a bit of a longer story.
No,
okay.
This podcast is all about long stories,
okay.
man. Please.
I got a call from Mike McEwen in 2003.
Okay.
He had won the Canadian University Championships.
Yep.
So he was going over to Italy for the World University Games, and they were able to bring a fifth man. So he called me and asked if I would go, and I obviously said yes. It was going to be the opportunity of a lifetime. And I went over to Italy, and I got to spend some time with Mike McEwen and Denny Neufeld and Nolan Thiessen and Sheldon Wedig, who was from the Northwest Territories. But anyway, at the time, Denny Neufeld was on a men's team with Willie Lyburn. And we ended up winning the World University Games, and I got to play a lot. I moved in to play third for Mike for the playoffs, and it was just this unbelievable experience. And but the following week was the Players' Championship, and Denny wasn't able to go. So he asked if I would play in his place on the Willie Lyburn team, and I said of course, because Leduc was close to home. So a week after the World University Games, I was in Leduc playing lead for Willie. And our first game, we played Kevin Martin, and we beat him. And we ended up losing a qualifying game to Dave Bomer. But and John Morris actually lost the final that week to Jeff Stoughton. But over that week, I had a chance to have a couple talks with John. And John had said, I'm coming out to Alberta. I'm looking for a young team. I'm looking for a couple of guys that can sweep. And really, that was it. So if I wasn't in Leduc, if I wasn't in Italy, those conversations with John probably wouldn't have happened. And a few months later, I wouldn't have got the phone call to play front end for a pretty unbelievable team. Like John Morris, Kevin Cooey, Paul Moffat. We didn't know each other from,
A hole in the ground?
From a hole in the ground, and actually ended up having a pretty successful 3-year run, and that was just that kicked off my career. So there's a lot of really good young curlers at that time that just didn't get that phone call to get those opportunities. I wasn't that good. I honestly wasn't. I was a good sweeper, and I was eager to learn, and I was motivated to play, but there was a lot of my game that wasn't there, and I was lucky to be under the tutelage of Kevin and John to really fine-tune some things. And yeah, what an unbelievable opportunity. I often look back and realize how lucky I was.
Fair enough. Yeah. Did you have, so John, when I talked with him, he sort of said that the genesis of the Kevin Martin team sort of came around when John was sort of thinking to himself, like, you know, I've always been a good curler, I've been a good player, I've been in the top 10, but I've never been in the top 3. I've never been in that conversation. I got to do something about this. And that's when he reached out to Kevin and things got going that way. Yeah. Did you have any type of similar, like, come to Jesus moment like that, where you were sort of like, I want to be better? Or was it just sort of, you just kind of got on that team and then you're like, okay, I guess I have to get better now? Or what was there a thought process for you where you thought, okay, yeah, I want to do this too?
Yeah. I never stopped wanting to get better, I guess is the way to put it. I knew we had some good success and we were good, but there was some really good seconds out there and just overall really good curlers that I wanted to be as good as. So no matter how much success we were having, that personal drive to constantly be the best never went away. And as you know, you're talking about John reaching out to Kevin, you couldn't have asked for a more perfect storm as to what happened when that team got put together. You know, everything that happened at the 2005 Olympic trials, you know, Kevin looking to rebuild a team. I was working for Kevin at his store at the Saville Sports Center, so Kevin and I knew each other well. And then really to have somebody like John willing to step down and play third and just kind of become the nucleus of that team, it literally was the perfect storm. Now,
did you feel, because the way John explains it is he sort of said that at the time, Kevin also had a young second, Carter Rycroft, and it was sort of described like it was between the two of you for being on that team. Yeah. Was that something that you were aware of, that you kind of maybe knew was happening, or was that something that you found out afterwards? Or
it might be a little blurry, but if I look back now, I have a pretty good feeling that I did know. And I was obviously okay with that. I completely understood, and I think I'm very grateful to John for a lot of things. I think in order for John to come play with Kevin, there was a few things that John wanted. And if I was a part of that package and a part of that deal, then I'm again, just thankful to John, because, you know, you guys everybody's watched John play. He's really good in a teaching role.
Totally.
He's really good when he's got some people around that he can help improve. And I mean, he's just really good at that aspect. I always thought John would make a terrific coach. So I think in a sense, he liked having me around as well. I was kind of a little bit of his protege. And it didn't hurt that I knew Kevin well already. But by that time we had worked together for 4 or 5 years. So that might've been the tipping point to get on that team. And whew, am I ever lucky it worked out.
Did you feel that too? Did you feel like so you get on the team starts, is that something that you thought about? Like, okay, I do have to get this much better, and I am kind of a protege when it comes to Kevin and even John. I mean, you know, John's obviously around the similar age and experience bracket with you, but Kevin certainly, was that something that you really felt like, oh boy, I better pick it up?
Oh yeah. But again, Kevin and I had so many talks about curling even before any of this ever happened. You know, we would go curl on separate teams, and we would come back to the store after a weekend on a Monday morning, and we'd have coffee and talk about how the event went. And I found that a lot of our mentality about the game was very similar. You know, we were very mechanics focused and technical focused, and it was about shots and execution and strategy. And so we were always on a very similar wavelength. So I was just, I was a sponge. And so when I got on that team, it was like, okay, Kevin, what are we doing? I just want to learn from the best, and I want to do what you're doing. And we actually didn't have a lot of conversations about what I needed to do to get better. It was just like, okay, follow me, let's go do this.
Right.
And we would go out on the ice with Jules, and we would throw. And eventually it all clicked. Technically, it all clicked with what he wanted from me. And we started to win a lot. And I think, you know, looking back now, Kevin's a very smart guy, and he doesn't always share all of his secrets, but I think he liked having somebody there, you know, to sweep his rocks in practice. to do everything he was doing so that he knew the effort was there amongst the team. And really to have somewhere to put the broom down. Like our rocks would track each other so perfectly after that many years of practice that wherever he would put the broom for me in a game, he knew he could put the broom there for himself.
Right.
So I think it actually really started to have an impact in our performance because we practiced so much together and so hard. And you can't help but get better when you're in his company that much.
Of course. And so was being... this is a weird question, but I have a guy who collaborates with me on this podcast, Matt Sussman, who also writes for Deadspin about curling, and he's a left-hander. Yeah. And so you're talking about your rocks tracking the same as Kevin's, and you're a lefty. Yeah. Was that something that you were aware of, that you maybe had to do things a little bit differently, even if you didn't want to, because
right
you
away.
had to? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was like, yeah, you're basically going to do it this way, or it's not going to work. You know, and at the time he was probably talking with his hands and laughing, but
when you say this way, you mean like release wise?
No, I mean more so line of delivery. Yeah. So I kind of had to learn how to throw it like a right-handed person. So if you ever watch me in the hack, I'm very much leaning to the left. I'm very much over my left leg. Whereas a lot of people that when your coaches are teaching, they're teaching that very square balanced setup. Mm-hmm. But the difference between a right-handed and a left-handed in that square balanced is quite dramatic when you look at their line of delivery.
Absolutely.
So I had to really inch my way over to the left so that when Kevin and I would be throwing, through some rocks or aiming at a target, that target was the same for both of us. So I had my head way over to the left, and that's kind of where I developed a right-handed line of delivery. And I think in the long run, it served me well because there's been very few people I've played with that I can't follow their line. Whereas, like you said, for a lefty, sometimes that can be a challenge.
Super big challenge. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's a benefit too, because if you have a lefty, you think, especially in the back end, you think like a lefty third, for example, you're like, ooh, maybe he can get somewhere that I can't get to. That's a benefit, especially if the other third is right-handed or whatever the case. But yeah, I think overall that seems to be. So is that something that you would say a left-hander should be thinking about, like when you're coming up in the game, or is that something you wait until someone tells you, no, I need you to do it this way so that we can follow the same path?
It's a good question. I think it's to each their own, and it just depends on, it depends on teams.
Right.
Teams are different. Take Tyler Tardy, for example, right? Yeah. World junior champion skip. I don't think there's a lot of people that are going to tell him how to throw a rock or what to change. You know, I mean, let's be honest, there's very few people in the game like Kevin Martin where you would literally do anything you could to have the opportunity to play with him, and if that meant making some adjustments in your delivery, you did it. We go back to and Ben Hebert wasn't he was the same as me, right? Just young guys trying to fit on this team. And there's a story in our first year together. We were out practicing. We were at some country club looking at some rocks, and we had a team practice, and Benny used to slide with his broom on the ice, right?
Yeah. And
it was a little bit, I guess sloppy. We were young and didn't really care much about delivery mechanics. And he threw a couple, and Kevin said, you should try that. You should try putting the broom on your back. It'll really square you up. And Ben said, well, no, I've been doing this for so long. I think I'm just going to keep the broom down here. And I remember Kevin looked right at him and said, well, if you're on this team in the next couple of years, I'm pretty sure that broom's going to be on your back. I don't think Ben's broom ever touched the ice again. That was it.
John told the exact same story.
Did he? Oh, of course he did. Oh, it was memorable, man. We were like, wow, okay.
Well, because he said, too, it was like kind of the way that Kevin said it was like, I think the way John told it was like Ben almost kind of thought Kevin was sort of joking around a little bit. Yeah. And then there was that realization like, oh, he's not joking at all.
The awkward silence where it's like, oh, I guess I better put the broom on my back. Yeah, good times.
That is, that's good. Well, speaking of Kevin, so obviously, he's a unique guy, and like you were saying, people would do anything to play with him. And John said that one of the things he learned, or the thing he learned the most important from Kevin, was the business side of curling, that it was more that there was a business side to it, and you had to figure out how to balance that with your game. Two questions. First of all, Well, I'll start with this one. What did you learn from Kevin? Like, what was the major thing that you learned? Like, John said it was the business side, but I feel like that's maybe more of a back end type thing, or was that the same for you?
It's probably similar. I like to use a different word, though. I learned a real professionalism from Kevin.
Okay.
Very few people approached the game like a professional sport. In every aspect, he did. From practice to competing to preparation, to his thoughts about where the game would go. He was kind of the first consummate professional. It wasn't all about the buddy friends. I'm just happy to be playing with friends. It's no, I want to win, and who's willing to jump on my bandwagon and do what I do in order to win. So that's what I learned, and really thankful for it, because up to that point, we kind of were just enjoying the game, loving being on the road, having a good time, and hoping to win a little bit here and there. But here was a guy that was obviously very successful already, but really approached the game in a way that I really loved. You know what? If we're going to be gone away from home that much, and if we're going to be putting this much into it, let's act like professionals. And so that was the number one thing I learned the most. And the other thing I learned from Kevin was just, how to be a really good curler.
Yeah.
He simplified the game, throw it straight with the right weight. And hopefully the broom's in the right spot. And if it's not, then use your sweepers to fix the little bit of error. But it really came down to mechanics and throwing the rock good, instead of all this other stuff that sometimes gets in the way, or curlers often get convoluted with too much information about what's happening, when really it just comes down to just execute, make shots. Strategy means nothing if you're not making shots. And once you start making shots, you start winning games. And that just comes down to throwing the rock well. That's why he's been so good even after curling, with his academies and his camps, and just getting people, teaching them how to properly throw a curling rock, because it's something that our sport has lacked in the last however many years, teaching people how to throw it properly.
Well, there's so many different ideas of how to do that too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have an entire province that's like, we're going to throw it this way.
Yeah, right. And you watch guys on TV, right? And you want to do what they do. So you kind of, bring things into your own game. But really, it's simple. Slide straight, throw it straight, right rotation, right weight. That's it. Simple game.
Very easy. Now, do you think did it ever get to a point where it became, I don't want to say too professional, to use your word, but it felt like towards the end of that team, it almost got maybe swallowed up a little bit by that side of it. Is that something that would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. I would agree that I regret a lot of what happened in those last few years, because we were such a great team and we had accomplished something so amazing as a group. I think that got lost a little bit in those last couple of years. It almost should have been more friends, buddy. Let's kind of enjoy this last couple of years together. Let's remember what we accomplished, rather than the business side of it, which kind of got in the way of a pretty terrific team. And to think of how it all ended, and then to have to play John in the Olympic trials semifinal, it was kind of a kick in the seeds. That should have been something we did together again. And obviously the talent was still there. I mean, John loses the final and we lose the semi. It makes you think of what we could have done if we were still together. So that part sucks. I think sometimes we could have stepped back and had a little bit more appreciation for one another at certain times, rather than letting that professionalism get in the way. But you live and learn and you move on. And to be honest, I think what had happened in those last couple of years probably had a little bit of an impact on what I decided to do this year.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go through another 4 years where, you lose sight of your goals and you lose sight of your friendships, and you end up, making regretful decisions.
And that's something that you could see potentially happening, since it was following sort of a similar trajectory with you making the Olympics and then potentially doing another quadrennial with the same team.
Yeah, I could see it. And there's some things that you just, in that scenario, that you can't control. You have one major goal for 4 years. Everything you do leads you towards that goal, and you accomplish it. In our case, really close. I think our ultimate goal was to win the Olympic trials. Not that we didn't want to win a medal, but we did accomplish our ultimate goal. It's hard to do that again and start from scratch.
It's a long road.
It's a long road. And then the other thing that happens is you put a huge target on your back. So the winning that you kind of gotten used to, now all of a sudden teams are getting better and teams will follow your model and teams will do what you do and they will start to beat you. And it's a very difficult thing to sit in a room and find out what it is you have to do to get better. And that can lead to some problems. And I foresaw some potential problems, and I just wanted to remember this team for what we accomplished and what we did. Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard. 4 years is hard with a major goal, and I just felt like we needed something to rejuvenate one another and refresh one another. And if stepping away is what was needed to be done, then I think Kevin and Ben are going to have a great year. I think bringing on Colton and BJ and some new blood and some fresh ideas and new energy is what guys like that need to get to the next level.
No, and that's kind of the thing. The way that, and I know I keep referring to John's interview, but he just said some things that I thought would be interesting to hear your side of the thing. He said in 2013 that he felt like the Kevin Martin team wouldn't have done, like, that he needed to leave in order for both of you to have success, because he felt like it had gotten to that stale point that he needed fresh blood for himself. You guys needed fresh blood. And he said he thought that Kevin would definitely pick up Dave. That was what he thought in his mind. So he's like, I know if Kevin gets Dave, that will be good for them and that will maximize their potential in the Olympic trials. And me going and playing with Jim will maximize my potential. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that there might have been one more run there if you had managed to have a good start to the year in 2013?
Yeah, I don't know. I often look back at that decision that John made, and I think it was a very enlightened, mature decision. I don't think it was very easy.
So it was the hardest day of his life?
Probably would have been. And I think, unfortunately, the way things were going, he kind of became the whipping boy, right? I mean, we were struggling and teams were getting better and we didn't really know how to get better and change things. And so John kind of became the person that everyone pointed fingers at.
Well, because you can't insult Kevin because he's one of the best of all time.
Well, and was kind of, the CEO of our team.
Right.
So, and John kind of had to be the communicator with the front end and the back end, and something that he had become so terrific at. Now he was kind of getting crapped on both ends all the time. And I can only imagine what that was doing to him. So yeah, and I have regrets too, right? I mean, I had a long time relationship with John and I loved the guy, but when you're in the heat of the moment and you're struggling and losing and you're trying to grasp onto things, you tend to follow your leader. And unfortunately, John took the brunt of most of that and made a huge decision. And it rejuvenated him. It rejuvenated the Cotter team. And we got a little bit of new blood with Dave and had a great year. So I think at the end of the day, you can say we had a great year. But do we regret that that's the way it happened? Absolutely.
Now, is that one of the, you said you foresaw some problems in the next 4 years. We don't have to get into that, but just on a personal level, is that something that you maybe saw happening to you as the third of Cooey and, things didn't maybe go the way you wanted at the Olympics? Is that something that you saw maybe happening, that you were going to be the guy that was going to get?
To be honest, probably not.
Okay.
Just because of the differing personalities,
right.
We weren't, this was not a team of finger pointing and blame. And to be honest with you, the evolution of teams, we had John Dunn, and our old team with Kevin could have used a John Dunn,
right? Just
somebody to facilitate difficult conversations and to get to the root of the real problems, to stop the blame game and focus on solutions. I mean, John was we probably wouldn't have done we definitely wouldn't have done what we did without John. Then teams need that type of person. So I don't see that I would have been that, finger pointing problem if things would have gone south. I just saw some things that I was just worried about not being refreshed and rejuvenated and having a team that we could win every weekend, that we would be getting complacent, because it's human nature for that to happen. So,
of course, yeah.
And there was no better time to take a step away and leave and let people get rejuvenated than now, when there's not a lot of Olympic points on the line. And these guys, Brent and Kevin and Benny, who I all love very much, have an opportunity to start something fresh and new and still enjoy to play.
And that's, I mean, at the end of the day, especially I think when you get older too, I mean, you're older than me, but I feel like I'm getting towards the end of my competitive curling career as well. I think that's something that you start to put more in focus is I want to enjoy, I'm spending so much time with these guys. I'm traveling all over the world playing, I'm spending a lot of time away from my family. If you're not loving it, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah. So, we can touch on that more if you'd like.
We'll get to your leaving in a little bit. We'll just kind of keep it going in order. And one thing I wanted to talk about with you, maybe on a more positive side of things, is, basically everyone I ever talk to about you says that you're the best teammate they've ever had, or one of the best teammates they've ever had. That you're a guy that keeps teams together, that, is the glue for teams. Is that something that you worked on, or is that something that just came natural to you? And what do you think makes you such a great teammate?
Well, that's a huge compliment, and it's funny you say that, because as I've kind of taken a little bit of a break here, I look back and I feel a little bit bad, because I think I've been really hard on my teammates over the years. In saying that, though, it was a very
hard in what way? Like just on their
expectations, and maybe I wasn't, but I just feel, especially Benny. I mean, Benny and I were together for so long. I just feel like I was pretty hard on him over the years. But it was a conscious thing in that I always knew with teams that you got the personality clashes could be the end of what could be a very good team. Personality clashes can be a very dangerous thing on a team, or they can be a wonderful thing. And I think it was a conscious thing to just try to be that guy that could mesh everyone's personalities. You could call me a people pleaser.
Sure.
Right? And have been for a long time, in the sense that I would do what was necessary to get Kevin in a good headspace, or I would do what was necessary to get people ready to play and in a positive way, so that I could be in a positive way. So, and I wanted to bring the best out in my players. I wanted to bring the best out in the people around me. So, and that's an easy thing to do when you love what you do. And I loved curling, and I loved being on a team, and I wanted to see everyone be happy and play well. And I think that mentality just helped me in my teammate decisions, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And you talked about clashing personalities. I mean, I want to ask you about Ben, because, I mean, you guys played together for so long, and I think people who know both of you would say that you have extremely different personalities, and not in a bad way. It's not like you're good and he's bad, or vice versa, just that you're very, very different people. Yeah. So how does that relationship form, and how does that become something that was so successful for you for almost a decade?
Yeah, big question. We were very similar when we got on that Kevin Martin team, just in age and willingness to win, willingness to learn, the drive to succeed. That was always there. And then, so that relationship just grew from there. And yeah, I mean, I love the guy. It got, we were always a little bit different, but I was a pretty hot-headed, fiery guy as well when we were both playing front end. I think when things changed a bit is when I got to move up and play back end. I got to see a different side of the game. I got to see how difficult calling line is, and how difficult playing back end and you know, having to make these shots in order to win games. I got to see a different side of the game, whereas, you know, playing front end, lots of times you can just come off the ice and say, oh, Skip didn't make any shots, or oh, Johnny blew that line call and that's why we lost. Well, now that was me. And so the difficulties we had was me trying to kind of get that across to Benny. Like, look, I know you want to win, and I know you're fiery, and I know you want to do everything, but I'm telling you now, from a person that's playing back end, that this is really hard. So you kind of got to take it a bit easy on us. And the nice thing with Benny is, because of our relationship, I think we were able to evolve together, you know, because there was that commonality and the trust and love with one another. We were able to get through the adversity together, whereas a lot of people, you know, in any relationship may have parted ways. It was like, okay, we both need to adapt. We both need to change, you know, for one another and for the team. So let's do that. And we were able to do that. And there's no better teammate when it comes to pushing guys to get better and succeed and win than a Ben Hebert. You know, he's been a huge part of my life, and you know, we still talk regularly, and yeah, we've been through a lot together.
Yeah, no kidding. So do you think that in a way maybe actually helped your relationship with Ben switching to third? Like if you had stayed as a front end player for this quadrennial, would that have potentially changed it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would have got stale.
Yeah,
right? Relationships do get stale.
Sure.
This allowed us to change and alter that dynamic a little bit in a really good way. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. And in the first year we played with Kevin Kody, remember I threw third, but I still swept.
Right. Yes.
And we almost killed each other because you know, you were still getting, you know, Ben was a lead and nothing much changed for him from team to team, whereas my role changed. So I was having to adapt, you know, mentally and emotionally and shot making wise. And I almost felt like Ben wasn't on that same path of change. So we were really butting heads a lot. So finally making the move into the house, I think allowed us to separate enough where it was like, okay, you know, you go be a leader with the front end now, and I'll try to be a leader with the back end. And if it keeps us a little bit away from each other, then that's probably a good thing for the team.
Yeah.
But as things went on over the years, and this last year being a perfect example, I think we found that balance and really used it in a positive way. You know, and I got so many compliments from Ben in the last year about, you know, whether it was the way I was playing or the way I was practicing, and I was able to share that with Benny. You know, your sweeping's been great, and there was way more positivity between us in this last year than there ever was before, and that's just a relationship that's evolved to a really good spot. And in this decision to leave, I mean, the hardest thing by 100 miles was calling Ben to tell him I was taking a break. That's 12 years together, through every win and loss you can ever imagine. You know, it's like a marriage. So it was difficult, but Benny will be fine.
Yeah, I think he'll manage. Okay. I think Benny will manage. Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Hardline Curling Supplies, and I'm happy that it is brought by Hardline Curling Supplies because I'm a Hardline Nation member. My team's been using Hardline for the last 5 years. We were onto Hardline products before they were even on Dragon's Den. Can you believe that? Ice Pad. It's the most technologically advanced brush on the market. You don't believe me? 7 of the top 9 men's teams and 10 of the top 15 women's teams in the world are all using this brush. Kevin Kody, Brad Gushue, Nicholas Edin, Anna Hasselborg, Reed Carruthers, Chelsea Carey, Mike McEwen, the list goes on. And they're great for the rec curler too. Don't just think, oh, I club curl, it's not good enough for me. It's phenomenal for you. It helps with your shoulders. You can use it for over 100 games. When your head wears out, you just throw it in the wash and you can use it again. It saves you money. It helps the environment. And they got a lot of great products too. They've got the best pants. Are you one of those cold curlers who's always complaining about how you're cold? Well, guess what? They've got super comfy and warm pants. They've got great shoes, shirts, helmets, broom bags, whatever you need. And if you were looking for that best delivery aid on the planet, that's Reed Carruthers Pro Slide, which you can get exclusively from Hardline Curling. It's guaranteed for life. Your one-stop shop for all your curling needs. So visit Hardline at www.hardlinecurling.com or go to any one of the 120 Hardline retailers around the world and get your products today. So let's fast forward to this past year. You were talking about this year being so great for your team, and obviously it was. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Olympic trials specifically because you've been through a lot and you've been on both ends of it. Like you say, you lost. I would imagine one of the toughest losses of your life in 2013. You lose the semifinal to your former teammate, but you also won in 2009. So how do the preparations for the Olympic trials, how did they vary on your own teams, like from team to team? Are there things that you did differently? Are there things that you always did the same because you knew those were the things that worked? Like, what does that look like? How does it vary every time you go through that process?
So there's been 4 of them.
Yes, I didn't. You were also
So the first semifinal we lost in 2005 with John. We were having a bit of a tough year leading up to those trials. So that preparation, we had basically decided that we were going to go in and have a good time and party and just be thankful to be there and see what happens. And next thing you know, we woke up and we were 6-1 in the last day with a chance to make it to the final. We eventually ran out of gas, which isn't a surprise. I think we were up till 4 a.m. just about every night. But the interesting perspective on that is every other team was so tight. They were so nervous and so tightly wound. I think coming out there a bit relaxed really helped us.
Well, and at that time, there had only been a couple Olympic trials, right?
Yeah,
so I think
really
you get a
knew.
little bit, you might have benefited because it was such a new thing. You have teams maybe not knowing how to prepare for it at that time, right?
Absolutely. The other events, I've been really fortunate, but 2009 was a case of, the trials are a case of don't make it too many big mistakes. Just stay solid and stay consistent. Do everything you can leading up preparation-wise, right? Like practice hard, play in big events, win finals, lose finals, get all the experience you can, get to those trials, and then just play. Don't think too much. Don't worry too much about the outcome. Just play and try to avoid the big mistake. And the one thing I've learned over the trials that we've done really well at is your skip needs to play fantastic. Kevin was unbelievable in Edmonton when we won. The rest of the team was solid. You can be solid around that 85 to 90%, but you need a skip making big shots. And you also need a few big misses. And every trials I've played in, Kevin Kody had a draw to beat us in Edmonton and missed it. Brad Jacobs had a draw to the 8-foot to beat us this year in Ottawa and missed it. So I've been on this end of a lot of really big misses in trials that have propelled us to the big games in the finals. So you need a lot of preparation and a lot of work, but you also need a hot skip and you need the luck of the curling gods. And I've really had all of that in all of my 4 Olympic trials. And this trials was a perfect example of, we needed the best Kevin that we could get. And, I love Kevin Kody. He's a great player and can be inconsistent at times, but there is no better big event player in the world right now than Kevin Kody. And he was lights out, made every shot we needed him to make, and drew the 4-foot to win. So you heard it right here. That's the secret. Get a hot skip and you can win a lot.
Skip needs to play well and you can win.
Simple.
Cool. Good to know that's how you prepared. Kevin, you got to play well, man. Yeah. Don't miss or we're going to lose.
And you know what's funny with Kevin? I don't think he said 5 words the whole week in Ottawa. And that's when you know that Kevin's dialed in. He just doesn't speak. He doesn't talk to anyone. He's kind of got his own space and he goes to his own room. And, the rest of us will hang out and have a cocktail and hang out in John Dunn's room and you don't see much of Kevin. And that's usually a good sign.
That's interesting. Yeah. Was that something that when you started playing with him, did that ever concern you or did you just kind of know that was his own thing? Or not concerned, but were you ever like, oh, this is kind of...
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you never really know.
Right.
I mean, he's quiet. He doesn't say very much. And sometimes, but when I look back now, the events that he's been the most dialed in and played his best, he's usually pretty calm and quiet and there's not much getting him rattled. So yeah, there was times where I'm like, is Kevin okay?
Right. Yeah.
I remember we had Jamie King was our 5th at the Briar in Calgary. And I remember having a talk with Jamie and just being like, is Kevin all right? And Jamie's like, oh yeah, this is just Kevin.
Yeah, he's feeling it.
And I played with Kevin before, right? I mean, Kevin was my 3rd, and I used to say back then when I played with Kevin and John that if I could ever go back and play with somebody again, it would be Kevin Kody.
Yeah,
he was a diamond in the rough back then with his shot making ability. It was like, oh wow, this guy is going to be really good. I don't think people realized how good he was going to be, but yeah. Pretty lucky to have played with him.
So this year, the trials, keeping on the same token, I noticed, so you guys, Kevin makes the draw to the 4-foot.
Yeah.
You win. Ben launches his broom across the arena.
Yeah.
Kevin jumps in the air, which for Kevin, that's like crowd surfing in the stands.
Yeah.
Brent loses his mind.
Yeah.
You just give a little quiet fist pump. You don't really do a whole lot as far as celebration goes. Yeah. What's going on in your head at that moment? What was the...
Okay. Well, I'll give you the truth. Okay,
that's what I would like.
Well, there's 2 things to that.
Okay.
The first one is the year before at the Briar in Newfoundland. It was a tough week for me personally.
Right.
I can't speak so much for the team because again, Kevin Kody stood on his head to get us into that final. There was a few things though. The crowd in Newfoundland was tough. For anyone that tells you that the crowd doesn't matter, it did there. It was like being the away team in a
right,
in a playoff hockey game.
Which I guess if you're a pro hockey player, you have experience with that.
Yeah,
but as a pro curler,
really.
you don't.
And
right?
hey, they were great. It was awesome. It was a cool atmosphere, but it was a little tough to play in. The second thing, I didn't play very good in that whole Briar. My teammates know that I had a bout of vertigo in the middle of the week that just kind of, it wasn't enough to derail me. And there's no excuses, but it certainly had an impact on my confidence level. And I just remember as the week went on, I couldn't wait for the week to be over.
Right. And that's not how you want to be feeling.
What an awful
Briar,
thing to say about a Briar, right? You only get so many Briars, and some people never get there. But I really wanted that week to be over.
Some people never get there.
And there was this moment when Brad went down to throw his last draw to win. And it was an intern draw. And the rock was about halfway down the sheet. And, to be honest, I didn't even know if it was going to get there. I don't think anybody did. And a couple things went through my mind, and they were as vivid and clear as day. I thought, oh man, this might be short. We might win. And then I had a sinking feeling like, man, I don't even feel like I deserve to win this Briar. And the other thing is, if this rock stops short, we might get killed. Like, we might not get out of this building alive. Like, this could be a really ugly scene.
Right.
To think that all these things go through my head in that 10 seconds is crazy, but it did.
Yeah,
and
of course.
And he won, and we moved on, and I had a big summer of kind of self-reflection. Like, I can't do that to my team again. I can't be in a position where I feel like that. And the trials are 6 months away. So I did everything I could to get in a better mind frame and to be a better I wasn't even a good teammate in Newfoundland, right? Here's Kevin playing 93%, and I'm not supporting him the way I need to. I'm not who I need to be if we're going to win these Olympic trials. So I got to the trials and felt great all week and had really done the work necessary to be in a good spot, to be the best teammate I could be. And Kevin Kody came out in Ottawa and again played absolutely fantastic. And I wanted to be that guy that helped him get to that level, and felt like I had done a really good job all week. And here we were in the final game, and get down to the last shot. And as Kevin's going down the ice, I have this flashback of Newfoundland. It's the exact same shot that Brad had to win, right? Intern draw to the forefoot. And I just had this overwhelming sense of just peace of mind that we did everything we absolutely could to get to this point to win. Regardless of whether he makes it or not, I was happy with what we had done. So that was a big part of my celebration and my reaction. There was a moment when the rock came over the hog line, though, that I think I blacked out because I thought the rock was going to stop. And I don't mean like stop a foot short. I actually thought I was seeing the rock stop halfway. So in my head, I'm like, oh no, like not like this.
Right.
Yeah,
if you're going to miss, at least miss by an inch.
Is this rock stopping halfway? Yeah. So I would never come out to sweep a rock. I don't know. I did that once 3 years ago, and I think Ben wanted to punch me after the game. Like, don't ever come out and help sweep a rock, because all you're going to do is burn it.
Yeah. You're
not helping anything. So I have no idea why I came out and swept it. But at the end of the day, the rock stops in the forefoot and we win. And I had just this overwhelming sense of peace of mind for everything we had been through and where we had been. And that's the only way that I can explain it. I know that it's a little bit weird, but
I didn't think it was. I mean, it wasn't weird. I wasn't like, oh God, like, you didn't. I mean,
but why isn't that guy more excited?
It was just a weird. Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, it was more just that of seeing it, and I know you a little bit, and obviously I followed your career for a long time, and it just was a bit of a different, especially when contrasted with Ben. Who, and I think part of it is that you feel as a curler, even someone who's not been anywhere near the trials, I even get the sense of like, winning one trials is like, holy shit, like that, just to even win one is so difficult.
Yeah.
So to win two,
crazy.
It's almost like that's where you see Ben's celebration. Like you can almost feel in that moment that he's like, I can't believe I won two of these.
Yeah.
And so I think it was almost more my expectation watching it was like, well, Ben and Mark for sure are just going to go crazy because how could you win two of these in your life?
It was different. It was different this time. I mean, people change and things change, and I just felt calm and relaxed. And I also knew that I needed to be in that mind frame to win. Being too intense or too excited, it never helped my game the way that just being a little bit more like Kevin Kody did.
Right.
Just focus. And so I just never really unleashed the emotion. It was more so like, oh, yes, we did it. And you got to remember too, it's the most stressful curling week ever.
Of course, yeah.
So when it's over, regardless whether you win or lose, there's a huge sigh of relief.
You're just ready to go to bed for 3 days.
I'm done.
Yeah. So then you get to the Olympics, and it goes well. I think. I mean,
you're one of the first people that have said that.
Well,
other than me,
I mean, I think that and I want to talk to you about this because I know that you'll have a good perspective on it, and I feel like it's very ignorant of people in this day and age, like to call yourself a curling fan, but then to be like, well, Canada needs to win all the time.
Yeah, it's not.
It's like, how big of a curling fan are you? Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be blind not to. And even if you're blind, you can listen to like how good these teams are doing. Like, the world is catching up. Like, it's not. So, I thought you guys played very well, but was that something that as the Olympics were going on and you guys were, getting to the point where you're having must-win games and getting later in the week, was that something that you guys were thinking about of like, holy shit, like we're not, like, do you go in with the expectations that just a regular Canadian curling fan has that we're going to win every game and we're going to like,
no.
So did that get you off your course at all during the week, or were you just like, no, we're playing well, we just got to...
Yeah, I think it might be a different answer if you ask every teammate. I can't really speak for the other guys, but I can tell you that I knew it was going to be a huge grind. I knew it was going to be way harder than Vancouver.
Well,
just
you
because
look
of
at
the
Vancouver.
Quality of teams.
Yeah, I mean, France played in Vancouver. I mean, no disrespect to France,
and no
but
disrespect to any of those guys.
But
this
I mean,
was
come on,
different.
You could look at the schedule in Vancouver and be like, well, there's like 3 or 4 free wins here.
Yeah.
And that was definitely not the case here.
No, and we got a good wake-up call, which we were ready for because you can't go in expecting that or you are dead.
Right.
So we went in expecting every single game to be tough, and no matter who it was, and just do all the right things, right? Adjust to the ice conditions, play your game, and kind of let the rest play out for itself. And then we get the first game against Italy, and right, and a lot of people are thinking, well, here's their first free space on the bingo card, but Joel Retornaz is a Canadian killer. He's beat teams in the past, so we knew it would be tough. Man, they played unbelievable. If Kevin doesn't make a great draw to steal one in the 6th end, we might not win that game. But I think we were 90% as a team.
Right.
So that gave us a real clear indication of what this week was going to be like and how we were going to have to play. Man, when we got to 6-3 and we got second place, it was the most awesome feeling. It was like we just grinded out better than we've ever grinded before against some really good teams, other than a couple of ends against Dean late and against Schuster. We could have been 8-1, but we were really close. So, we approach these things different than your average Canadian fan because now we know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is look at the slam a month before, and it was Moet against Kim from Korea in a slam final.
Yeah.
You think you ever would have seen that 5 years ago?
No, and then the one right after the Olympics, DeCruz beat the Dean or whatever. Like,
right? Yeah. And we play these guys all year. They are damn good. So we knew what we were getting into. And it came down to a couple shots. And to be honest with you, it came a little bit down to ice conditions. We never got entirely comfortable. Now, from a personal perspective, I was comfortable, really comfortable in the first 6 games. I can't tell you a time where I felt more confident, more comfortable, more like, man, we're going to kick everyone's asses, even if I have to do it on my own. It just was an unbelievable feeling. Sometimes you just know the second you let go of a rock, whether you've made the shot or not, you're just that comfortable with the ice conditions. And that's where I was at. And you know what? They touched up the rocks, which we knew they were going to do. They had done it in the mixed doubles. They were looking for a little bit more curl. And I never wanted to make it an excuse. It's not. You need to adjust accordingly. But in the back of my mind, I was just like, I wish they didn't do that.
Just because you personally were so dialed in.
And it's so hard to get to that feeling. You curl a long time, and there's only a few events that come around in your life where it just all makes sense.
Yeah.
Draw weight feels good. Run backs feel good. Every hack waiter you can just see before you throw. You're just in a zone. You
and
don't
how nice
get
is that it's at the Olympics?
It's so good. It's like, wow, this is perfect. So that adds to it, right? You're so jacked up for every game because you're like, man, the game feels easy for once. So you just don't want the variables to change, even though you know they're going to. So, they touched him up, and that was fine. But in the back of my mind, I was always like, that's too bad.
Right.
I'm gonna miss this feeling. And I still think we did okay, but draw weight got tricky. Draw weight definitely got a little tougher. And so we missed a few draws in the playoffs, and that was literally the difference between a medal and not a medal. But overall, I'm still pretty proud of what we did. And, we play a sport where it comes down to a couple of shots.
Totally.
And, a couple of shots on the other way and we have a gold medal, or a couple shots in the other direction and we don't win the trials. So
right.
Hey, that's the nature of the beast.
Was it something that were you guys feeling a bit of the panic from Canada, or is that something that you're at the Olympics, you don't care? Because I think it was not that you guys were ever, you guys were never out of it, but I feel like it was a combination because Homan wasn't playing as well as they should have been playing, or not even that, but just they didn't do as well as people expected. Yeah. And then you guys lost a couple games to teams that people maybe in their mind think you shouldn't be losing to, even if they're wrong. That's how. So was that something that you were aware of, that this was happening, a bit of that kind of panic, or was that something that you just completely shut out and it didn't matter?
I think you're crazy if you're going to say you just shut it out.
Right.
It helped that we were in Korea, where you're a little bit away from mainstream media and TV and news. So you kind of are in your own bubble. But you have a good idea of what's going on back home and what people are saying and thinking. And hey, that comes with the territory. The nice thing in Canadian curling is we've all been there before. Maybe not so at the Olympics, but we've been to World Championships. We've been to Briars where we haven't met the expectation. So it comes with being a competitive curler in Canada. It's not always going to go the way you want to. And how are you going to deal with that? Were we panicking? No. Were we aware of the situation? Yeah. But you do everything you can to not let that affect your performance, and you go out there and you just do what you have to do to win, and you really try to manage those emotions in a positive way, because every time you step out on that ice, whether you're 7-1 or 4-3, it's an opportunity to be your best. And we knew how close we were. We didn't need people telling us we were shitting the bed, because really we weren't. Right. And we played some really good teams, and we made some great shots, and we won some tight games. And I think if you asked us, we were after that round robin, we were as sure as anybody that we were going to win a gold medal. Right.
Is that something that upsets you? Because I feel like when curling happens at the Olympics, it all of a sudden becomes the domain of everybody. Yeah. It's like it's one of the most popular sports at the Olympics, but for some reason only at the Olympics. We're still working on converting those people to Grand Slam and Briar fans and Scotties fans, but it feels like once the Olympics come around, everybody has an opinion on curling all of a sudden. Yeah. And is that something that maybe not upsets you, but is that something that gets frustrating, especially probably coming home and maybe hearing from people, oh, you did this, and is that something that adds to it?
I don't think so, because I think you need those fans. I think you need those fans to expect Canada to win, and you need them to be vocal and to demand that, they want the best from their athletes, and they want medals, and they want curling to be good. So when you hear those voices and you hear people are upset and they didn't like it, they might not know exactly what happened. They might just say, Canada shit the bed. And even though we didn't, but we didn't win a medal. So it does force the powers that be to look for improvements and the opportunity to make some changes to get better. So I think if you didn't have those voices and you didn't have those people upset, you might not get the changes that are required to improve for the next time. So it doesn't really frustrate me. I like the conversation. I like to tell people what happened and why and what we could do better, and to be involved and to get the average curling fan that maybe doesn't watch all year long but did watch at the Olympics. That's great. Even if they are mad and frustrated and they want to... I got punched in a grocery store by an older lady that was mad at how we did. Yeah, she punched me right in the arm. But you know what? I like that. You show some passion. That's wonderful. Right. Good. You watched it. You know what? I'm sorry we didn't do what you wanted, but maybe the next time it'll be better. So no, in the big scheme of things. Did she say anything?
She just punched you.
Yeah, she was really happy to see me and excited and loves curling. And then all out of nowhere, her facial expression totally changed and she just punched me. She goes, but I didn't like what happened at the Olympics. So I'm like, okay. Cool. Her name was Olive.
Isn't that perfect? Of course.
Her name was Olive. So no, it's good. And I like what's happening now, right? We're talking about what we can do better next time. What was wrong with our preparation? What was wrong with the games? Why did we lose? What happened here and there? Losing provides the opportunity to learn. You've
Right.
only lost if you've failed to learn. So let's learn from it and move on. And I go back to the 2006 Olympic hockey team.
Right.
Right? Look how terrible they were.
Terrible.
Right? And it led to some huge changes in Hockey Canada. And now we've had this huge success for the last 12 years. I don't think Curl Canada has to make any dramatic changes, but maybe it's some subtle changes here and there to get the best out of their athletes at the most important time.
What's the one change for you that would make it, or that you would make? That, and it doesn't have to be for everybody, even if it's just for Marc Kennedy. What would have been the one thing that would have been better for you?
Oh man, like I told you, I felt so good. I honestly don't think it was anything. I think.
Okay, then generally speaking,
generally it's a standardized ice condition. Generally,
Right.
it's something where we can't just make off the cuff decisions at an event because somebody wants something.
Right.
You know, that pissed me off a little bit because, you know, we've gotten used to playing on straighter ice. We've gotten used to playing on swingy ice. You have to adapt your game for whatever you're faced with. But I don't love having to adapt to ice conditions and then have to change it mid-event. That's asking a lot. You know, it's like changing the rough at a US Open after the second round. Like it'll totally change your approach, your strategy and everything. And you don't have enough time to do it the way you want to do it. So you know what? Give us what it is at the start of the week and your best team will adapt and win. As long as it's not poker, concrete, straight, as long as you have a little bit of curl, more often than not, the best teams will still prevail.
Yeah.
And in this case, that didn't. So that upset me a little bit. But everything else that I know people have talked about, the preparation, the lead up, the burnout, all that stuff. I think most of that has been well taken care of, and I think it is a really good system. I think it's just a few little things here and there.
Yeah, because I that's one thing that I always think too. And again, I'm not playing at the level that you are, but it feels to me like people complaining about the lead up time. You know, the pre-trials are so close, or the trials are so close to the Olympics. If you're a professional curler or on that level or whatever you want to call it, elite top level curler, and you're someone who's in contention for the Olympics, playing two big events 6 weeks apart is like nothing.
Yeah,
it's nothing. I mean, you're playing 15 events a year.
I completely agree. I don't think at all that. I mean, I watch what hockey guys go through. Like, look at that season, and then the playoffs, and then they're done in June, and they have to start again in October. Like, we are babies if we're complaining about the lead of that type of burnout. It's not there. We have a good system, and to have the team that wins the trials, to have them go to the Olympics 2 months later is a really good thing. You're getting the hottest team. You're getting the most confident team, a team that just won the hardest event in the world that there is to win on a high. Let's let them keep going. It's all good. And, you know, we felt, you know, I can't speak for Rachel's team. I don't know if they disagree. I actually haven't had this conversation with them, but we felt rested, relaxed, prepared. You know, we had a good plan going there for practice and you know, getting over the jet lag, and everything was awesome. And if there's burnout, maybe it's the points over the previous couple of seasons, but you know, maybe there are some things they can change earlier and a couple of years before, but that year of the Olympics, in my mind, it is set out the way it should be.
Right. Okay, well, let's talk about, we'll wrap this up here by talking about how you're not retired. We're making that very clear. This is not a retirement.
No.
So walk me through that, because you obviously you're not playing this upcoming season, and a lot of people took that to mean that you are retired, and you are very much not retired. So we kind of touched on it a little bit throughout the show, but talk about that. You're on hiatus. Why? What's going on? Why are you not retired? Why do people think you're retired? Let's just get it all out there.
Okay. So I knew after the Olympics in my mind that I knew I needed a break. I just needed a break. And to be honest, you and I chatted about it. I kind of just wanted to walk away quietly for a little while and just take some time at home and take a year off and, you know, maybe try some other things. And I knew that my hip needed to get healthy. I knew my body needed to get healthy. So like I said, I wanted to walk away a little bit quietly, but the way the timing worked out, we were at the Briar in Regina, and I needed to tell my teammates what my plan was. because they needed to get involved in the whole free agent frenzy. You know, who are they going to play with? I didn't want to wait until the end of the season and then they don't have a good player that they can pick up. So I told them, and then at that point it was going to be very difficult to keep it quiet. So, you know, I had to do the TSN interviews and let people know, and maybe I wasn't careful enough in just saying that I was taking a break. So the terminology came stepping back from competitive curling, which some people take as retirement, some people take as a break, whatever. In my mind, it was just that. I need a break for lots of reasons. I've been doing this a long time. I've been going hard. I've never felt that off season, over the last 4 years especially, that 4-month break was enough for me to get refreshed, rejuvenated, to get my body where I wanted it to be so that I wouldn't be playing in a little bit of discomfort and pain. And that's what I wanted, was more time to get healthy. So that was my thinking. And a lot of people I've talked to have had a hard time understanding that. They're like, well, why when you've got such a great team and you've got, you know, and you're at kind of at the peak, why would you take a break? But my thought is if I can take a year and get where I want to be mentally and physically, I actually feel like that might extend my career on the other end a few years.
Right.
You know, Kevin Martin he had a major surgery this year. And he's 50 years old, and that is entirely from practicing and curling. And, you know, I got to thinking, I'm going down that same path. And I don't know if I want to do that, you know. So are there some things I can do differently here to prepare my body for the rigors of the curling? That's what was going on in my head, John.
Right.
I just wanted a break.
Just let me take a break.
And how long is that break? Is it 1 season? Is it 2? Is it, you know? And I've had a summer here where I've gotten an MRI and I've gotten some stuff done to find out where I'm at physically, and I'm excited about, you know, the workouts I've been doing and the things I've been doing differently to get things moving better, because I don't exactly put my body in an easy position sliding.
No, yes.
So, you know, I needed to find ways to make that more efficient and not having to do the whole sponsor hunt in the summer and sponsor appearances and everything that comes with being on a professional curling team. It's a lot. So just needed to get rejuvenated and refreshed. I always knew that put me at a risk of, you know, not having a place to go when I'm ready to come back. You know, I'm giving up a great team. I'm potentially giving up a great relationship with Ben and Kevin and Brent. And it was a sacrifice I was willing to make in order to get myself where I needed to be to come back and be who I think I could be on the curling ice.
So coming back, if you do come back, and it sounds like you want to, I look at your career and I think, what's the motivation? What's the motivation for you to come back? I mean, you've got 2 Olympic appearances, you've got an Olympic medal, you've got world championship medals, you've been to the Brier 8 times, I think. Yeah. So what's the motivation for you? What would be the thing that's most drawing you back?
It's a really good question. If I was to sum it up, it would be that I love competitive curling. I love curling at that level. I love, you know, sometimes it can wear on you, and I think it did wear on me, and losses can wear on you in tough games. But at the end of the day, when I look back at my career, those big games against good teams that come down to one shot here and there, you know, you ask my wife, Nicole, and she gets nervous and she hates those moments. She has to look away because it drives her so crazy. And I've often told her, I'm like, no, babe, that's living.
Right.
Those are moments that a lot of people don't get in their life.
Totally.
And we've got to experience so many times, and it's, you know, it's addicting. You know, I'm not saying that I need to have those moments, but I just want to be in the game and being able to compete against the best and do something that I have loved since I was 6 years old, and to keep doing it. You know, I'm 36, but I don't want to be done at 37 because I need a hip replacement.
Right.
You know, I want to play, you know, until I'm ready to say I'm done on my own terms. Is
it going to be team dependent if you come back? So is there, because I know like John said he thinks he's done with men's, he's only playing mixed doubles now, and he said there's maybe one team that would bring him out of retirement or hiatus or whatever. For him, he says more retirement than hiatus, but Is that kind of a similar situation for you? There's like one or two guys or potential teams that would be able to bring you out, or do you care?
Well, it would matter.
Yeah.
I
mean, obviously I know you're not going to just like play with a Tuesday night men's team and bring them around on tour, but
what are you doing next year, John? No, I'm just kidding.
Playing Tuesday night men's, man.
Totally. I'm just teasing you. It will be team dependent, but I'll put
my broom on my back if you want.
If you're on this team in the next couple of years,
I slide with my broom on the ice, so I'll put it on my back.
That's a conversation stopper right there. Yeah, it'll definitely be team dependent, but I went into this process thinking that would eventually take care of itself.
Right.
If I took care of the things I needed to take care of myself, and being able to offer to a team what I think I can offer, I always felt like that opportunity would come, and I would know which one it is and when it is and what to do about it. I might be wrong. Right. I might be standing there next year with my hand up and there's no takers, but that's okay. It's a risk I was willing to take, and we'll kind of see how that goes. I actually haven't really got that far.
Right.
It's still been very, and it sounds selfish, man, but it's been very me right now.
That's okay though.
Right? Like I need to take care of me,
yeah,
and the rest will take care of itself.
Do you want to skip?
Not particularly.
So if you came back third or second potentially,
I don't think I'd go back to second.
So it's third.
It's too much sweeping.
Yeah,
too old for that, man.
Yeah, I hear you.
I absolutely loved playing third.
Yeah,
people have asked me, what's your favorite memories or best events, and there's a couple that stand out, but winning the Brier in Ottawa and winning the Worlds in Switzerland was the first time I felt like I could play third and move up, and that maybe I had finally reached the potential I thought I could as a player, and I just love that position. So, but we'll see. Maybe I have to put together a team. If you get that broom on your back,
sounds good, man. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm always looking. That's where most of the top teams look. They're like, oh, who's a guy who's coming second in BC a bunch of times? That's who we need.
That's just potential, man. You're always looking for potential.
That's it. Hey,
we've talked about this though. Curling's you got to get creative now if you're putting together teams. I mean, we use the word incestuous, but it really is. Teams break up and they get put together and it's all the same faces. And your average curling fan doesn't know who's with who because they're all the same people.
Yeah.
It used to be you'd bring in the young talent, Scott Pfeiffer, Carter Rycroft, even myself, who's the young players around the country that we can bring in to play front end, and maybe eventually they move up to play back end. But it's not like that anymore.
No, you definitely want a 40-year-old sweeping. That's the key now.
Yeah, I know.
I came in at the wrong time. Yeah, well, and I'm also not that good, so that's a problem.
That hurts too. Come on, man. You take it easy on yourself. You're good. Played against you. We played last year in Penticton. Yeah, we had a good game.
We did have a very good game. Yeah, that was actually probably our best game of the tournament because we were not. We were struggling. Well, we had our third had a baby, so we had the old spare
wife
situation.
Had a baby.
Well, yes.
Okay, good.
His wife had a baby, and he was at home with her, and so it was a new team dynamic for us.
Oh, but, those young families, they get in the way of curling.
They do, don't they? That's why I try to avoid. I just avoid it altogether.
Smart. Yeah, keep your options open.
Well, thanks, Mark. Is there anything else you want to add? Usually, this is where I let people thank their sponsors.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? That's one thing, though. One place I've been extremely fortunate was to have the support that we had over the years. You can't do what we did without incredible sponsors. And we didn't just have sponsors. We had partners and we had relationships and, with Meridian Manufacturing and Weedman and Wild Rose, who, has continued to stay on with Ben and Kevin, and just some unbelievable relationships, and, UFA, and I could go on and on and on, and Scott Taylor at Balance Plus. And yeah, you can't do what we do without those partnerships. So they deserve every recognition that they can get.
Well, there you go. You just recognized them. So thanks, Mark. Appreciate you doing this. And I guess we'll see next year.
Soon.
The Kennedy-Cullen connection.
There you go.
It's coming hard.
Can't wait. Thanks, John.
Thanks for listening, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to episode 3 of Stone and Straw. I mean, what more is there to say? Just a phenomenal chat with Marc. As I said off the top, just a great man. If you've ever had the pleasure of getting to chat with him at a curling event, he's one of the best we got. And I hope you're all following him, and I'm sure we're all excited to see what's going to be next in his career. You can follow him on Twitter at LeftyKenBear. You can follow me on Twitter at Cullen the Curler, and you can follow the podcast on Twitter at Stone Straw Pod. We should have a website coming up too, so that'll be we'll have a little Dynasty web shop on there where you can get your 10% off. I know that code is still valid, so if you want to use that code Stone Straw, you'll get 10% off your order at Dynasty, which is awesome. So you can use that'll be coming up soon, but for right now, we're just on Twitter. Few people to thank before I let you go this week. My producer, as always, is Daniel Cuzzetto. Does an amazing job behind the boards, very good friend of mine and an excellent producer, so thank you to Daniel. I have to thank my contributor, Matt Sussman. He was the one who gave me the idea to ask Marc about throwing left-handed, and it was kind of funny because I think Matt sent that email to me almost kind of as a joke, sort of saying like, hey, maybe ask him about being a left-hander because I'm a left-hander and it is definitely a different thing, and I wasn't really expecting there to be a very interesting answer to that question. I just thought, Matt's been helping me out a lot. We've done some stuff with Deadspin together. I'll throw him a bone. I'll get this left-handed question in there. And then Marc had like a super interesting answer that I feel like every left-handed curler would be like, maybe that's something that I have to think about. So I got to thank Matt for that, for all his contributions. You can follow him on Twitter at sus2-. I would like to thank my graphic designer, Kody Audette at Codeezy on Twitter. Did all the amazing graphics for this podcast. Did my team's curling jackets. Just a great dude. Give him a follow. And Graham Wright from Tokyo Police Club. Their new album, TPC, is out now. It is fantastic. I mean, I've been a fan of that band for a really long time. The new album is fantastic. So check that out. He did the theme song for this show, and I've had lots of people tell me how much they like it. So thank you to Graham for that. Next week, we got a real special one. Cheryl Bernard joined me on the podcast. We had quite a time. I went out to the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame where she's now working, and we had just a super great interview about her entire career, and she had a 2018 Olympics experience, much like Marc did too, and just the stuff that she shared was phenomenal. So I know you guys are going to really like that one, so make sure you tune in next week to the Cheryl Bernard episode of Stone and Straw. That's it. I'm out of here. It's been a long ramble. Thank you guys for listening to me. This is John Cullen. This is the Stone and Straw podcast. Thank you for listening. If you liked it, tell your friends, and we'll see you back here next week.